Well, it is good to have you back for another week of Bible study as we are continuing on through our journey. This Bible study is called Suit Up, and the idea is that we are looking into the Bible to see what kind of character those who want to be a follower of Jesus Christ should be putting on, should be assuming for themselves. And one of the things that we've kind of discussed is that this isn't just good recommendations for character for someone who's a follower of Christ. This is really just being a good human being. And one of the things that we've discussed over the last week is that really what Jesus came to do is to help us be our best selves, our best humans. And so really those who follow Jesus Christ should be the best. And so this is what we're looking into here as we follow through this study, all of this brought to you courtesy of Christ Table. If you'd like to find out more about Christ Table, what we do, who we are, how we minister, we'd love to have you check us out and maybe even become a part of what we're doing. Head over to www.christtable.today, find out more about us there. And specifically, we'd love for you at that URL to sign up for our email list. We have a lot going on at Christ Table. For instance, this Bible study, you can be a part of it simply by coming here, wherever you're watching this at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time. You can download the entire set of readings that we're going through over the next few weeks by visiting go.christtable.today/suitup, and that will give you a PDF that will give you all of the day's readings so that you can keep up with us. We have a lot of other things going on, though, around Christ Table. We are working through this book, Holy Envy, written by Barbara Brown Taylor. This is an absolutely incredible book that's giving you a different perspective on how you can, in view of other world religions, be your best in your faith in following Jesus Christ or wherever you are on your faith journey. You can download that book on any e-reading device, Kindle, Apple Books, and join us Wednesday nights at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. This week, we're reading chapters 3 and chapters 4. And so come for the discussion at go.christtable.today/discuss. And why don't we go ahead and dig in? When we come to 2 Corinthians chapter 7, verse 1, we're going to find Paul in the middle of a conversation with the church in how they can do better, be more mature, kind of shave off the rough edges in their life and in their character. And so that is where we find ourselves today. And we're just going to take one verse here because we're going to find that there's kind of a lot packed into that verse. So 2 Corinthians chapter 7, verse 1, Paul says, because we have these promises, dear friends, and so if you want to know what those promises are, feel free to do a little bit of extra credit work today and back up into the end of chapter 6 and see what Paul is talking about the promises that have been made. But because we have these promises, dear friends, let us cleanse ourselves from everything that can defile our body or spirit, and let us work towards complete holiness because we fear God. Now, whenever I hear this verse, the first thing that I think of is giving my kids a bath or taking a shower after playing all day and getting completely muddy and getting completely dirty. And one of the things that we recognize is even though we can't see the dirt, my kids will go outside sometimes and play in the rain or play in the mud, play in the dirt, or do an activity, a sport that causes them, like baseball, sliding in the home plate, and they get all that clay and dirt and sand all over them, depending on what they're doing. That kind of thing can be seen. And we know in those moments that we're dirty, and that we need to take a bath, we need to take a shower, we need to cleanse ourselves. Sometimes, though, my kids will try to go days, even longer, without taking a bath or a shower, and we'll say, when was the last time that you took a bath or a shower? I don't know. When they answer, I don't know, that's an indication that it's longer than it should be, right? And so you'll say, why have you not taken a bath or well, I didn't need one. Well, you do, because you accumulate You accumulate dirt. You accumulate grossness. Just even in the normal day to day, routine run of life. And so, whether you think you need it or not, whether you think you've done anything that has made you dirty, you just pick it up sometimes by living, by being in this world. Dear friends, let us cleanse ourselves from everything that can defile our body or spirit. Sometimes the things that you need to cleanse your soul, your spirit from, are things that you are aware of. And sometimes the things that you need cleansed from are things that you aren't so aware of. And let us work toward complete holiness because we fear God. Now, this is an interesting line, complete holiness. What does that mean? Because we fear God. What does that mean? Well, I have a couple of thoughts for this, and hopefully it will help you get down the road a little bit on this, but I also want you to do some of the legwork yourself on understanding these things. I believe that you don't need a master's or a doctoral degree to understand yourself what these are saying. I believe that God will speak directly to you the meanings of some of these passages and things for you. And so I'm always interested in the comments, and I love it whenever you give back to us and to me feedback, and oftentimes you say things and think of things and apply it in ways that I would have never thought of and are brilliant. And I appreciate that. So everything that contaminates the body and the spirit, this is in this verse here, let us cleanse ourselves from everything that can defile our body and spirit. Another way of saying that, everything that contaminates the body and the spirit, that is anything that impacts the believer's life. And so Paul here is kind of giving a broad spectrum saying, just by living in the world, you are being impacted. Some of those things are things that you have done, that you have to own, that have contaminated you, that have defiled you, that have kind of gotten you dirty. A lot of it, though, a lot of it is things that you didn't do. But you still were caught in the danger zone, in the splash zone, around something else that happened. You witnessed something, you heard something, you were a tacit part of something that you weren't involved in, you didn't make the decision for, you're not responsible for, but it still affected you. It took your soul, it took your spirit, and it drug it through the mud. Anything that impacts your life is going to probably in some way on this earth contaminate you. Now what do we do with that? Where do we go with that? Paul says here that the goal is to be separate. That's what he means when he says, and let me bring the verse back up here, whenever he says, let us work towards complete holiness. What he means here is let us work to be separate, to be set apart or holy. Now that doesn't mean that we don't interact with the world around us. No, not at all. Jesus even said that we were to be in the world, not of the world, but not out of the world, in the world, not of it, but not out of it, that we're supposed to be in it. And so there can be this distancing sometimes that followers of Jesus Christ do. We only hang out with friend groups that are other Christians. We put our kids in schools that are Christian schools. We only spend time on Christian sports teams and athletic clubs rather than in the local community ones. We do book clubs and book studies that are with other Christians, and you may not do all of those, but maybe you do some of those, or other ways in which your circle and spheres of influence and relationships become, the longer you are with Christ, become increasingly only centered around Christian people, and you distance from the world You distance from people who are not followers of Jesus Christ, and you disconnect. That's not really what is in view here, because we've been told to be in the world. Where we are supposed to be separate from is in our holiness, in our spirit, in our soul. There are to be boundaries that we create, lines that we don't cross. And those lines and boundaries that we create, I think, are things that cause our soul or our spirit to be defiled, to be contaminated. There are different plates in our house that we use for different occasions and for different things. There are the plates that the kids grab, which are usually the plastic plates because they're the lightest and the easiest to handle. We have the everyday plates that most of the rest of us use. We have special everyday plates that only get used on a little more special occasions. And then we have the real nice stuff, the fine china and the silver. And so we have like 4 or 5 different sets of things that get used for different times and in different ways. And I think what God is saying here in some ways is not necessarily that you are fine china. I think that maybe if we think that way, we think that, we're something that we're not. Maybe I don't think it's wrong to think you're fine china, but I think that the idea here is that you have a special purpose, and that purpose sometimes should hopefully prevent you from being used in other ways and in other things that just aren't a good idea. Our fine china, we don't take outside and use when we're eating around the bonfire. It's not because it shouldn't be there. It's just not a good idea. It's just not a great plan. And I think that this is a little bit more the view that we have here, is that God is saying that you aren't special, you aren't dramatically different from everybody else in the world, but you're in a different category now, and you have to think about things that other people aren't yet thinking of. And so you should strive to be set apart from things that other people don't mind getting their soul dirty from. But for you, it's just not a great place for you to be. What he's getting at here is a striving for purity. And I think over the years, this idea has been taken in a wildly unbiblical and unchristlike direction, in that we were supposed to be completely out of the world, that we were supposed to wear purity on our shirt sleeves. And I think that we have to walk that back a little bit and say, really what's going on here is that Paul is suggesting for us that we strive to keep ourselves clean from the things that could disconnect us from God or from other people or distract us, things that could harm our soul. The goal here is for us to be walking in lockstep with Jesus, for us to not have anything on our hearts or on our minds that might cause us to, a little bit like the Garden of Eden, that might cause us to feel a shame that wants us to hide. And I think that is the idea here, is if anything that we're involved in is causing us to feel shame or to want to hide from God, then something is out of alignment. Now, maybe what is out of alignment is our understanding. Maybe it shouldn't be bringing shame to us, and we need to understand that there's freedom in that. One of the ones that is classic for Christians is the use of alcohol. Depending on how you were raised, maybe that brought shame to you. But when you read scripture, the use of alcohol isn't prohibited. And so if there's a feeling of shame or needing to hide from God on that one, then it may be our understanding and our level of maturity on that needs to become more pure. But there are maybe perhaps other things that might bring shame into our hearts or cause us to want to hide from God. And it may well be that thing for us is a barrier that we need to set apart from. It's something that needs to be minimized or needs to be removed in our lives because of what it does to us. And so whenever things are made pure, they are brought to a point of heat where there is a separation between the good and the bad. This is how they purify metals. It's through a process of heating. They are able to pull out the dross and pull out the things that are complicating, that are defiling the pure metal. And this is a little bit what happens for us whenever we're placed in the fire. What will happen is it will become immediately obvious to us where those impurities are in our life, in our heart, in the day-to-day actions that are contaminating our soul. And in those moments, we get a choice as to what we do. We either take our hand and scoop those things out of our life, or we let things go cold. We let our heart go cold, and those impurities remain inside of us. I hope that you will join me on a journey of recognizing the things in our lives that are bringing contamination into our journey, and that whenever the heat of the fire comes and we're made aware of it, that we'll have the courage, the bravery to take a risk, to scoop out those things, to leave them behind, so that we may become more pure, more set apart, more holy for God. That's my prayer for you, and may it be so. Until tomorrow, happy reading.